growing up, I saw the devastation of tornadoes, and we had a lot of hail in the DFW area. And then the family moved down here for my dad's job. And I've been in the area ever since. But I've seen my fair share of storms. That's for these days. If in Texas, if we do go to appraisal, all they have to do is if they like the award, just pay the award, pay the interest, and that's all they have to do. They don't have to pay any attorney's fees or penalties or anything like that.
From humble beginnings, Insurance Claim HQ has grown to one of the largest property casualty firms in the country. We didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. Every week, we're talking to claims professionals and top experts from all over, all to help you grow your business and make you stronger. Let's level up together. I'm Galen Hare. Welcome to the Level Up Claims Podcast.
In 2024, Hurricane Beryl devastated the state of Texas, causing billions and billions in damage. Today, one of our experienced Texas-based property casualty attorneys is here to talk about the state of Hurricane Beryl claims and how recovery is going for the hurricane-stricken area. Let's welcome David Sanders. David, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Oh man, it's great to have you on the podcast. So you are one, for the people that don't know, are one of our Texas attorneys here. But you have an interesting career start. Well, a few interesting career starts, right? First of all, you went to Texas A&M, which I have instructed everyone not to hold that against you. I'm a UT guy. But beyond that, you actually, well, you tell them, what did you first do in the insurance industry?
Well, the first thing I actually did in the insurance industry was I actually sold and helped market like life insurance and annuity products. But then my next stop, which is more pertinent, it was a property casualty adjuster for a major insurance company here in Texas.
And what in the world made you want to do that?
Well, at the time, I was already in the industry, but I was I was applying for other jobs at the time. I was looking for something where I could kind of get out of what I was doing and get more hands-on. And I just applied to a posting, and they were looking for business degrees and people with technical minds. And I ended up getting the job. And I had a background in construction and in automotive, and so I ended up getting the job, and that's how I ended up there.
And I mean, that's awesome. But like, how's that helped you today? Or like, has it helped you today? Like when you became a lawyer, like what did you take away from being a claims adjuster?
Just I know what they're thinking. I know what their job's like. I know what their job demands are like. I know what their files need to look like. I know what it takes to help me help you, so to speak, to get this claim resolved. That's the major thing, and I also recognize and I worked with a lot of good people where I was at, and they they just wanted to get their job done and go home at the end of the day, and move as many files off their desk as they could, and so that's the biggest thing is being able to be in their shoes or know what it's like to be in their shoes.
Yeah, and I think you do that well. Like, I mean, I never get any like bad feedback. Sometimes I'll have an attorney that like an adjuster will call and be like, I won't talk to that person, but you just kind of do your thing. They kind of talk to you, and you guys, try to resolve some files, which is awesome. And you're no stranger to hurricanes. You live in Galveston County, right?
Right. Yeah, I've seen a lot of storms over the years.
So I was going to say, so are you just trying to find storms? Are you like attracted to them, or?
Well, the family moved here whenever I was in junior high to this area. Previously, I was in the Dallas DFW area. Before that, I was in East Texas. So it went from tornadoes and hailstorms to more windstorms and hurricanes. So a little bit of but growing up, I saw the devastation of tornadoes, and we had a lot of hail in the DFW area. And then the family moved down here, for my dad's job. And I've been in the area ever since, but I've seen my fair share of storms, that's for sure.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I mean, you and I talked about this when we interviewed together. Me also DFW in East Texas, and like so many tornadoes and so many. I guess maybe they don't get weather in like West Texas because it's just like dry and arid, but everywhere else, I mean, you can't go anywhere in Texas without like finding a major disaster. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it seems to be increasing, but yeah, that's definitely left a mark on me as a child, and seeing people going through storms and the damage they can cause, and seeing people having help rebuilding their lives and having to fight with the insurance companies, and so it just kind of stuck with me, and so here I am now.
So what like made you want to become a lawyer, I guess?
Well, when I wanted to be a lawyer. I'd say sometime around in high school. Truth be told, I had a friend that had a couple run-ins with the law, and I was trying to help him out, and we did the career test and things like that, and it just suited me. I like to read and write. I won a few writing competitions and things like that, and I want to be. I've always wanted to be, someone who could be an expert in something. I like to be a source of knowledge, and so I like to negotiate, and I like to help people. I like to help people not feel worried and anxious and afraid. I like to help people put people at ease, and so just all kind of basically.
Yeah, I took that same test. And we're not that far apart, but I took that same test. I always wondered if that was like a unique Texas thing because no one ever else mentions like taking the career test where they're like, this is what you need to be. And
Yeah,
they definitely said lawyer, but I guess I just ignored that for years and then kind of got back on track.
yeah. I didn't think I wanted to do extra school, but it just ended up that way. I initially thought I was going to do computers when I got into college, and that first year I switched to the best pre-law major that they had at A&M at the time, which was a business degree, business management, and because I guess there's a lot of I guess legal courses and things like that you have to take, and negotiation courses and whatnot, but. It's helped me now that business education and doing what I do every day. But yeah, I switched and didn't look back. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I took a slightly alternative like path. I didn't do any pre-law and like didn't even have that opportunity. But yeah, same thing. Kind of worked my way back around to it. But it's a tough sell to like some Texas teenager at like 16, 17 who's been in school their whole life to be like, oh, this aptitude test you took for 2 hours says you should be a lawyer. So definitely sign up for an extra 3 years of school after college. Such a hard. So when you did go to law school, like what was your thought? Because I don't know about you, but like most of us I find are not doing what we thought we'd be doing. So like what did law school David Sanders think he was going to be when he was a lawyer?
I thought it was going to help me be better in business. I thought it would be more advantageous than an MBA at the time. I had an entrepreneur streak, and I thought that it would serve me well, and that's going back to why I wanted to be in the lawyer in the first place. Is where I grew up. I didn't know any lawyers. We didn't. I don't know anybody. Um, you know, Back in Marshall, Texas. I don't. We didn't know any lawyers, but when I did interact with lawyers, I heard about lawyers. I was just in awe. It seemed like the power they had to make things happen. And but in law school, it was law school. I did what I had to do. But how I ended up doing what I'm doing is I went and clerked for a firm where they were doing maritime injury, a lot of Jones Act claims and whatnot, and I love the water, and so that's how I kind of got into that. But that was my first time where I was like helping plaintiffs, helping injured people and standing up to the big guy and all that stuff, and I saw some really good lawyers at work, and I caught the bug, and I said, "This is what I want to do. I want to help the little guy. I want to help people."
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of have to have that, otherwise you can't survive in this field. All right, well, I'll put it off for a minute, but let's talk about Hurricane Beryl because that's ultimately why we're here. So
Right.
dropped a ton of rain, spawned a bunch of tornadoes, and probably most horrifically caused a few dozen deaths. It
Yeah.
was. I think we're gonna look back on Beryl, and it's gonna be the most underrated hurricane in terms of devastation because right on either side of it, we had a bunch of other hurricanes, and now we've got the wildfires, and we just had like record-setting hurricanes. I think when we look back, we'll see, and I'm not one of those like conspiracy theorists. At the end of the day, the government's going to do what they're going to do, but I think this was probably one of the least paid attention to significant disasters, at least since I have been in this industry. What kind of damage like did you actually see? Not even talking about specific homes, but being there, being in South Texas, like what did you see?
Well, of all the storms that I've been through personally, this was the worst wind I've experienced. I'm having to get my roof replaced. I mean, it took out all. I'm in northern Galveston County, but it went, cut right. We had the dirty side where I'm at here in Galveston County, and
Mm.
so I mean, we saw oak trees, uprooted. We saw, fencing down everywhere. Of course, we saw, lots of shingles blown off. We saw just debris everywhere. In downtown Houston, there were, big, large glass buildings with all the windows busted in. So it was the most wind damage I've seen from a storm. Like, Ike was significant because it just dumped rain and just flooded everything, just raining, raining, raining. But it really, we didn't have the wind like we had with Beryl, and so that was something else. There were a lot of hairy moments when you're riding it out, where it sounded like I was like, is there, the sound, of the like a locomotive, when it's like oh man, is there a big tornado coming right at me, that kind of thing, and just watching the weather and everything, staying up all night until the power cut out, and but there were some hairy moments. I mean, it destroyed. I had a pretty decent shed, just ripped that apart, and then just after that, just driving around looking at the devastation. I mean, it was, and then it was a long time before we had power and internet and all that restored. Well, not a long time, but a long time compared to past storms I've been through. So it was like I said, it was the worst wind that I've experienced. I mean, my grandmother lost her house in Ike. She was living in Crystal Beach, Bolivar. I mean, just leveled it down to the ground, nothing left. So I mean, but still, this for me was worse wind than that. So it may not have been recorded that way, and it may not have been that way, in Galveston County specifically where I'm at. But this was the worst that I'd experienced, and I've been in the area since '99. So
I can't even imagine. And yeah, I knew that you didn't have power. It took us a little while, not long. Like you were really great about passing messages just to make sure you were okay.
yeah,
Because there was that question, it was insane. Which we're glad you were okay, obviously. So what are you seeing now in terms of recovery? You talked a little bit about some of the damage you saw. You talked about, you know, some of the things that still need to be done, but like just being out there, how's recovery looking?
like you said, it's like shortly after Beryl, we had these other just crazy storms, and it seemed like the focus quickly shifted to the East Coast. But at the same time, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like I don't, not used to storms, but I mean, people just kind of around here, a storm came through, and now we start rebuilding. It's just everybody bands together and gets their chainsaws and generators and helps each other out, and just starts the rebuilding and the cleanup. And there wasn't a whole lot of fanfare about it. There are still buildings, especially on the island, Galveston Island, and then throughout Surfside and a lot of those coastal communities where there you still see there's a lot of homes that are still damaged, that are still in repairs. You see some in various states of repair, and some people have been able to get everything put back together, and already getting their rentals going and all that again. But it's just varying states of repair and disrepair. And there are a lot of denials that have come out, and we have several files obviously where we've got denials that we're working through. But generally, like I said, it's just people are almost used to storms, and so they kind of know what to do, and they knew what to expect, and everybody banded together as a community like we do.
I think we saw a few denials where they're like wind speeds weren't high enough, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me with all the tornadoes that spawned everywhere. But
Yeah,
what can you do?
they as they cherry pick those numbers and whatnot, and they don't pay attention to the gusts or where all the tornado activity was, and they just try to take that lower number and put a denial on it. But and if you push them enough, and you put enough data in front of them, it's undeniable, and that's just what you got to do.
Absolutely. And so now kind of transitioning to some of those claims, because yeah, you have a bunch of barrel claims. Unfortunately, we're constantly getting more, right? Which is, I say unfortunately, because like y'all listening, whether you're a public adjuster or contractor, it sounds disingenuous, but like we're in a world where we would rather like have almost no claims because there are none out there, right? We'll do what needs to be done. We'll help. But it is crazy to me that today people are still getting fed up every day and calling for lawyers' helps with barrel claims. So like what are some common trends you're seeing with like how the carriers are handling them?
Well, what they've really started doing is, especially with the recent change in the way appraisals and attorneys' fees are in Texas. What they'll do is they'll write just a high enough estimate to where it's like, man, I don't know if it's worth if you put in the time and money into this, it's going to end up with the client ended up with but little to no money. They've got to where they'll write a sheet right at the right amount to where it's like, man, it's really hard to it's right on the edge, right on the cusp. That's what I've seen a lot of. If it's not an outright denial, because they know these days, if in Texas, if we do go to appraisal, all they have to do is if they like the award, just pay the award, pay the interest, and that's all they have to do. They don't have to pay any attorney's fees or penalties or anything like that. So they have that in their back pocket, and they know that, and so a lot of times it's what they're doing. So they'll be like, well, we've paid X amount, and maybe your claim's worth another 5-10 thousand, but it's going to cost you almost that much to even go through the appraisal process, and maybe you won't pay it at the end of that. And what are you gonna fight that or not? Over another 5,000. So it's just a way to just systematically. It's just enough underpay a claim to where it may not be attractive to pursue litigation or something like that. That's kind of the biggest thing that we're seeing.
Yeah. And y'all, I like jokingly say this, but it's like, if you feel like there's some claim that should be an appraisal in Texas, like all you got to do is hire us, because it seems like as soon as we show up, and they realize we're going to go after them for attorney's fees, they trigger appraisal so they can avoid it. It seems to be the playbook that the Texas insurers have opened up for this one. But
Yeah.
anything kind of sorry, go ahead.
No, it's the system's kind of broken right now. We're really hopeful the legislature fixes it, because the other problem is establishing that the carriers waive their right to appraisal is extremely difficult. So you can get really deep in the litigation process, spending a bunch of money and time on a file, and then they can just go ahead and invoke appraisal, pay their interest, and walk away. And so that's the biggest issue we have going right now. So yeah, I mean, that a lot of times they'll do that. They'll invoke appraisal. If they like the award, they'll pay it. If they don't, they'll fight it. And there you go.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's wild. Any other kind of trends though with Beryl, like anything, you don't even have to call out the carrier specifically, but certain types of denials or certain types of games that are being played?
Well, a new one, I've seen a couple of defenses where they said, "Oh, the this your it was water. The ground was saturated with water, so that caused your fences to buckle. It wasn't the wind; it was that the ground was too soft. And it's like just crazy stuff like that, crazy denials. But then also, what you're seeing a lot of is within the last couple of years, obviously rates jumped up, and so people called their agents, and the agent said, "Yeah, I'll get your rate lower." But they didn't pay attention that their deductible is now a 2% or 3% deductible,
Mm,
or they're throwing in a roof exclusion, or a scheduled roof payment, or a scheduled roof replacement. So each year, we have to pay less and less, a lower and lower percentage of the cost of your roof to replace it. And so then people aren't paying attention to that. Agents aren't pointing it out, and so we're having that conversation, and it's too late. We're seeing a lot of that too.
yeah, that's a hard one. It breaks my heart every time I hear that, because what really happens is you're just an American family like struggling trying to save some money, so you call your agent to get your rate lower. And they know this whole time that they can take advantage of you. Not even just the agent, it's the whole thing, right? The carriers are pushing it too, and no one sits down. I just hate that we have such an important product. Insurance is so important to everyone, and there's no education program that people have to take before they buy a house on how insurance works. There's no mandated requirement that your insurance agent actually explain what's in the policy to you and what's not in the policy to you before you purchase it. It's wild. And in those situations, unless the agent really, really, truly did something wrong, right? There's nothing we can do, huh, David?
Yeah, especially in Texas. I mean, you're bound to have read and understand your policy, and so it's frustrating, because, like you said, it is this is most people's largest investment, their nest egg, their the thing they need to protect, and that's what insurance is for. And that's what everybody, a lot of clients will say, I've been paying every single premium due for the last 20 something years, and this is the first time I've made a claim in some cases. And it's like, sorry, they changed your deductible last year, and you're bound to have understood and read that. And there's nothing I can do for you. You know, you got a $15,000 deductible, and that's about what your roof costs to replace. You know, and so that's it's just, yeah, it is frustrating. That's another thing. I think you're right. I think it should be some sort of. I mean, if they're not going to, because the lobbying efforts, of course, the lobbying groups are very powerful, but there should be some sort of public service announcement. Check your policy, check your deductible. Think about how much your damage are going to have to be before insurance actually have to kick in and pay something. Because it's just crazy. It's someday, if they don't fix something, you might as well. It's practically being self-insured. I mean, especially when it comes to windstorm. Of course, you'll have your theft and fire, but when it comes to windstorm, I mean, I don't even know why even have it in some circumstances if it's it's more than your roof costs to replace just to do your deductible itself. It's just crazy.
No, it's insane. And if you ever fire, you're good, right? But on the windstorm side, like at that point, all you're really doing is hedging your bets. Like, I'd rather have insurance in case my entire house gets destroyed by wind as opposed to just my roof,
Yeah.
It's risky. And some of those deductibles are higher than these families could ever pay.
Oh yeah.
Ever. Well, while we're on a sad note, are there any kind of approaching like deadlines that policyholders should be aware of if they've been sitting back kind of trying to deal with or they haven't even made a claim, like whatever their situation is? If they're listening to you right now, is there anything they should know about?
Well, if you haven't filed a claim, file it now. You can add whatever information later. Just get the claim filed. Just to get it filed, because the longer you do wait, so generally most policies you have a year to file the claim, but the longer you wait, the more evidence starts to deteriorate. The more the carrier starts to ask questions and put it in a jury's mind. Well, why did you wait so long to file this claim? Also, the more wind events can occur, and more damage can occur, and more further deterioration to your shingles, especially since now they're compromised. They're especially going to deteriorate more quickly, and all that's gonna hurt your claim. But file the claim now if you haven't already filed it, and if you have Texas windstorm insurance, if you have filed a claim and they have sent some sort of partial or full denial, the law says you got 60 days from that notice to demand appraisal. Otherwise, you lose your right to contest the amount of damages. That's huge. Now, there have been times where I've seen that worked on and waived and extended, but just to be safe, you've got to make sure to do that. So, if you did get a denial or you haven't filed yet and you get a denial letter from TWI or even a partial denial from Texas Windstorm, get a public adjuster or attorney involved right away is what I would advise. I mean,
Yeah, it's so important, guys. If you're listening at home, and you happen to be just a policyholder, which is not just, but not a public adjuster, not a contractor, these deadlines are crucial. I mean, we live and die by them as lawyers, and you need to act the same way if you have a claim right now that's being negatively affected. You need to pay attention to these deadlines and take action. Dude, David, we got to know you. That was positive. A lot of pretty negative stuff. That's okay, because it's a hurricane, and that's just kind of where it's at. And unfortunately, what we don't have to report is carriers are doing great. But with all that said, let's switch to a positive note. Before we let you go, David, what does it mean to you to level up?
Well, I think of it in terms of like video game. You've got to. It's you're sharpening your skills. You're practicing, and you're gaining more knowledge, and you're getting better at the game to move on to the next level. And that's what leveling up means to me. And in terms of what I do here, it's using that, the sharpened saw that I've sharpened over the years to operate at a higher level than the carriers, to beat them at their own game. And
I
to
love that.
provide a level of service that, you don't see too much in this world anymore.
I love that. David, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, glad to be here. Thank you.
I'd like to thank David Sanders for joining us on the podcast. It is so unfortunate, the absolute devastation that was wreaked by Hurricane Beryl. It is even more unfortunate that people just aren't talking about it. But if you have a Hurricane Beryl claim, meet these deadlines that David talked about and heed his advice. Document your claim well and hold your insurance company accountable. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player.